Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Namo tassa bhagavato arahato samma sambuddhassa. Buddhang dhammang sanghang namasami. Homage to the Blessed One, to the Buddha, our teacher. Homage to the Dhamma, which is truth, brought forth and explained so well, so that we know in this current day which direction to face and have the path kind of laid out before us. And homage to the Sangha, to all those who are practicing, whether ordained or lay people, and even any of those who have taken any steps on the path to Nibbana, to liberation. So today we're going to start off a day of meditation together, and we will join together however much you can practice, whatever you set out for yourself. From the get-go, I encourage you to make of the day what you will. This is not a thou shalt. This is not a hard and fast, retreat schedule that you've got to keep to. For one, because I can't keep you to anything. you're in your own place coming through an internet connection, but also because I found that practice is flowing. Yeah. You're going to be presented with a bunch of different scenarios that you can't possibly plan for during the course of a day of retreat. So just flow with them. Yeah. See if rather than trying to hold on to a particular set of conditions, what you try to hold on to is the reflection that we're developing, and use that to help you contextualize, to give you a framework for whatever happens, because stuff is going to happen. Yeah. We just that's why we have Dhamma. Yeah, because stuff happens. That's what it's for. It's for us to make sense of the stuff. And one of the greatest, most powerful, most insightful meditations that we can cultivate to help us deal with stuff, with things happening, with the ups and downs of life, what we call the vicissitudes or the worldly winds, is the reflection known as Aniccā-sañña. And that is the theme of the day. And Aniccā-sañña is the perception of impermanence. And I'd like to go into it and give the opportunity, create the container to explore this. Because it's very easy to say impermanence, things are impermanent. But it is actually a whole meditation subject. It is a whole new way of moving the mind into a perspective on life. Yeah? And we have a bunch of meditation subjects, right? We have metta bhavana, loving kindness. We have asubha, contemplating the body. We have mindfulness of the body just as an entire subject, moving through the postures and composed elements and all of these things. We have, there's so many. I mean, you can reflect on, nutriments, the nature of food. I could go on and on about these meditation subjects, but some of the ones that are the simplest are overlooked. Do you know of a technique for developing the perception of impermanence? Well, there you go. It's pretty straightforward. And in the Girimananda Sutta, which is Anguttara Nikaya 10.60, the Buddha actually refers to this as a perception, as a meditation that can be cultivated. And he does so by saying a meditator goes to the woods or to a cave or to an empty building, and they sit down and they reflect. Form is impermanent, feeling is impermanent, perception is impermanent, mental formations are impermanent, Consciousness is impermanent. And they maintain this reflection on the five aggregates thus, and that is their meditation on impermanence. And this is the simplest meditation instructions you could ask for. Many of us are not simple people, and we don't do good with, okay, just do this, rinse and repeat, and on and on and on. So I'd like to flesh this out a bit. What is it we're developing? This perception sañña is such an important word to this. It gives us a lot of clues as to what we should expect. It's easy to overlook that word, but sañña is one of the aggregates. It was just listed there. It's perception, right? But the aggregates are not necessarily a good thing. The aggregates are a function of our intrinsically kind of deluded mind. The aggregates are a reflection of the stuff that our mind does behind the scenes, the way that it takes things that are happening and it creates a reality out of them. This is actually good news for us in terms of a meditation subject. So the perception of impermanence, we can know from the get-go, is not dealing with fundamental reality. This is not the characteristic of impermanence. The instructions are not develop wisdom about the Dhamma, or the essential nature of phenomena. That's not what we have to do here, because it's hard to do that as a sort of rolling, sort of cumulative meditation subject, right? You will develop this insight throughout every meditation subject that you use. But instead, this perception of impermanence is going to be a state of mind within the structure of our mind. And that's great, because that means it's using the thing that you've already got. You don't have to be enlightened before you use this. You can use your own, mind with its ups and downs and its perspectives on things. So sañña is by nature biased. It doesn't see things objectively, it sees things subjectively. So in terms of like how it feels and how it lands with you. So you've probably already had an experience of what we would call Aniccā-sañña. And maybe the word impermanent has become a bit too loaded if you've been in Buddhist circles for a while. It strikes you as obvious, right? Just, yeah, things are impermanent, but of course, nothing lasts forever. But what does it feel like when we experience that? What does it feel like when we actually see that in the world? And so maybe you will be able to guide yourself towards this experience of being able to see the world from that perspective, because it has some characteristics. Maybe you've been out on a starry night and you've kind of looked up into the sky and you've seen the vastness of it, and you've kind of felt yourself shrinking. You feel tiny and insignificant with it in front of you. Yeah. Or maybe you're at a party, a dinner party or something, and everybody's chatting and mingling, and there's some music and people are eating, and you kind of go off to the side, and for a minute you're just listening to the chatter, to the people coming and going, and for a minute it's like you're not there. You're just a fly on the wall, as they say. And this whole scene is playing out before you, and you're getting to see it as though you're watching a TV show. Yeah. And that's happening even as you are physically there. Right? What is that experience like? Or maybe you're working, you're doing things, you have projects as you normally do, and then one day you get sick and you call into work, you call your friends like, no, I've got something that's nasty. I mean, fluids are coming out of all the various 9 orifices of the human body. And you're lying in bed and you're just listening to the cars going outside, and you're looking at the little notifications on your phone, and you're thinking like the world is just passing me by. And you start to get that sense of, wow, it's just passing me by. it's moving, and like it doesn't need me to be there to work. Like the world is still going, and you kind of get this sense of detachment from it all. It's like, wow, it all happens independent of me. And again, the sense of self starts to shrink away. And all of these are a reflection of what happens when we move into Aniccā-sañña, when we move into this perception of impermanence. What we are is we're moving into a state where we're allowing the mind to not objectify things, to not basically create any idea of stability or tangibility in the world. And this is something that our mind can do. Yeah, it's not that we're programmed that we actually absolutely need to objectify things. It's just that we're so used to objectifying things. We're so used to setting schedules and to saying like, this is me and that is them, and this is the way that this is supposed to be. That is so natural to us. It feels very unnatural to kind of step back and to not do that at all. But when we do get that feeling of things flowing by. And when the Buddha talks about the benefit of developing this perception, he says the advantage, what you get from doing this, and this comes up in the Meggyā Sutta, which I talked about a couple of weeks ago. In the Meggyā Sutta, the Buddha says, Meggyā, why don't you develop the perception of impermanence to help remove the delusion of a self? Yeah? Remove the delusion of a permanent self. So what we find is that this delusion of a permanent self is arising and ceasing. It is not always there. Yeah. So Aniccā-sañña is us moving into that space where we find a way to think where we don't need to do that. And as we develop it, as we get good at it, it starts to feel more natural. It even starts to feel really good. It starts to feel really flowing and pleasant and reliable. Yeah. But it never quite feels functional. It always feels like, oh, like the dashing of hopes. Yeah, it's like, oh, I had such hopes that I was going to be so successful and so popular and so influential and so rich, and here I am just noticing how none of that matters, and that despite all of the friends and family and teachers and students and all of these things that I have, here I am feeling like I'm on my own, really, moving through time, and that when I pass on from here, I will go alone. And funny enough, this is what it's getting closer to what we can actually feel in any moment when we're really paying attention to things. Yeah. So all of the things that we objectify, all of the things that we can grasp, which is the five aggregates: form, feeling, other perceptions, mental fabrications, and consciousness itself. Those are the things that when we grasp things, we grasp at those. When we let those flow by, they're still arising in the mind, but we're just letting them go and letting them go. And eventually they're arising and ceasing so quickly, it's almost as if there's no place for them to land in the mind. And this is what we're working towards. Yeah. This is what we're trying to develop. This is a landing point. And maybe you will get some, it's like anything. Yeah. I think Ajahn Chah said that meditation is a lot like opening a water spout. First you get drips, and then you get a little bit of a stream, and then you get a torrent. Yeah. And so at first you're going to be reflecting, and then maybe you'll be like, oh, this is what it is. But likely the moment you have that thought, you're going to grab that thought. You're going to grasp at that thought. And so it'll stop for a minute. And you'll be like, I'm doing it. I'm doing it. At that moment, you're not doing it. At that moment, you're thinking about how you were doing it. Yeah. But then you'll let go, you'll relax, you'll start to reflect again, and it'll come again. Basically, we want to move into a state where it's happening without any delusion that we're doing it. Yeah. Because again, if we're doing anything, we're slightly missing the point. Now, somebody asked me very recently about techniques. What techniques do monastics practice? And it occurred to me, this has never really gelled before, it occurred to me that um, many people are used to being taught techniques, right? Probably all of you have gone somewhere and they've taught you a technique. And I thought something about that strikes me as weird. And it was because I realized that as monastics, we are not taught like, this is the technique, do this, keep doing this, you will attain enlightenment. Instead, what we are taught is how to create techniques and how to let go of techniques. And that this is what we're being encouraged to do, to wake up to the Dhamma, is to be independent in it. You're not really independent until you can create your own meditation techniques, apply them, and then let them go when you don't need them anymore because they've done their result. And I try to, I've been looking at how I approach Aniccā-sañña, and the technique that I've created recently for developing this is a bit of a mantra. And the mantra is different. And the reason I say different rather than impermanent or changing is just specific to me. Maybe you will find a different word will resonate more clearly. But I like to explain why I chose the word different, because we are going to find, as we cultivate the Aniccā-sañña, obviously we're gonna deal with the main 5 hindrances, yeah? And if you've had meditation instruction, you know about sense desire and ill will and sleepiness, sloth and torpor, restlessness, and then doubt. You know these things are going to creep in, and so I'm not even going to get into them because, you know, this is like the fabric of what it means to meditate, and you can find these in other places if you're really curious about them. But specific to the development of this particular meditation is going to be one particular obstacle that I think we should look out for. And particularly this morning, we should look out for this very specific obstacle. And this mantra will help us work through that obstacle. And the obstacle is comparison. So what is the function of sañña? Sañña is like, it's like a TV screen in our mind. And we see something and we look back into our memory and we flash up a bunch of images of what this thing reminds us of. We go back to our memory and like, where have I seen this before? And that is how we create an idea of the thing. But if we are thinking about something that might happen in the future, we do this in the form of imagination, right? We think it could be like this, it could be like this, it could be like this. And then we decide on what we think it's going to be like. And often it's never like that because the world is not made of perception, it's made of stuff, and stuff follows different rules than what we expect. But this is what sañña is doing. It is trying to look at the past or imagine into the future to figure out what it is going through in the present. Yeah. The problem with this is that it is very susceptible to comparisons. And this is the underlying tendency, what we call the anusaya, for the mind, basically. And recently we were talking a lot about conceit, yeah, mana. And this is kind of along the same lines, right? Comparing things. And we had that threefold formula. You think something is better, you think something is worse, or you think something is the same. And these are all problems, yeah? Because none of them are accurate. And all of them involve us objectifying and sort of stepping out of our experience. So what is the first one? The first one is thinking that things are better. And as you are meditating, you might think, oh, this is so much nicer. Or as you get up and it's lunchtime and you make a sandwich and you're eating the sandwich. And you're like, oh, wow, it's a really good sandwich. The bread is really fresh today. And you're thinking, this is better. This probably is the easiest one to overlook. The Buddha says that sense desire, your preference is the least blameworthy of all the delusions, but it's still a delusion, right? Because in order to think this is better, you don't even realize it, but you're thinking the past was worse. Yeah. And that's not fair. That's not accurate. And it's very it takes you out of the moment, right? If you think this is better, then regardless of how nice the past was, right? You've just knocked it down a rung. It could have been that the last sandwich you had was perfectly fine. And at the same time you were eating that, you were thinking, this is such a good sandwich. This is the best sandwich I've ever had. But then you have a sandwich that seems to you be better, and suddenly that one's not good enough. And this is what we do, and we do it all the time. So if in your meditation, you're sitting there and you're sitting back, you're like, oh, I feel really good today. Watch yourself. Different. Use the mantra. Different. Not that I feel better today. It's oh, this feels different. Because what will this do? This will keep you from going back into the past. Yeah. It'll keep you from comparing and just saying, this is a different experience. What is this experience like? And that helps keep you in the moment. Yeah. It helps keep you feeling what you're feeling. And it removes all of the baggage, all of the personality, all of the me that comes along with this being better than what was happening. And intrinsically, we're always trying to move towards better, right? But for this particular meditation, remember, we're moving into that state where our self can kind of be irrelevant. That's actually a good thing. When we start to feel that, we should be like, oh, finally, yeah? Finally, I can just breathe. Nothing matters. Nothing's so important. Nothing's so riveting. This is how we get there. You catch yourself, you're like, oh, this is good, or oh, I feel really good, or oh, I'm so much more wakeful, or oh, I'm having so much fewer hindrances. Just different. This is different. We don't even have to think of what it's different than. Again, we're working within sañña. So this is not an objective measurement. It doesn't matter if it's better or worse or anything. It doesn't matter if it is different than anything. Just different, and just keep in the moment. This is different. What is this like? This is different. What is this like? The second thing we might find ourselves doing, and this is a bit stronger, is a bit harder to work with, is this is worse. Yeah. And so we get a pain in our hip or in our back, or we're starting to have a headache. We're like, oh, this is worse. Well, what are we doing? We're thinking back to this wasn't there before. I wish I was back there. This is something we're always wishing, right? We're always wishing that in the present moment, we could be an amalgamation of all of the best states we have ever had. We have the head without a headache, and the shoulders without tension, and we can have the hip without pain. We have the knee without swelling. We have the digestion that's neither too hot nor too cold, and a belly that's full. But we always get just a mixture. Some things are good and some things are bad. Some things are pleasant. Some things are unpleasant. So this one is very gripping. Yeah. It's going to be very hard to kind of knock ourselves out of this one, but this is a lot like developing metta practice, loving kindness practice. Yeah. Our grumbles and our gripes can just feel very vindicating, very right, very appropriate. But it's only when we kind of like pry them free, and it's almost like prying. It's like, no, I don't want to feel that. This is not helping. That we see, oh, it's way better without that. I'm way happier when I'm not grumbling. I'm way happier when I'm not right and they're wrong. Yeah? And it's the same with our body. It's like we can think about how, oh man, I wish it wasn't like this. But if we were to pry that state, no, this is different. Oh, that's a different kind of sensation in my hip. Or, oh, my head feels a little different. Yeah. We've freed ourselves from all of the comparison to the past. Yeah. We don't have to think of what it's different than. We don't have to think this is worse than, or we're backsliding, or we're falling apart, or we're aging, or we don't have to think about any of that. We say, oh, this is different. What is this like? You know, oh, this is, it's squishier, huh? What is that like? Oh, it stings a little when I do that. What is that like? Really funny example I think of this was actually given by Goenka, SN Goenka, during his 10-day course. That's very, very funny. He says, oh, you know, meditators, when you really get good at this practice, you don't fear death because you've spent your entire life going, oh, what is this sensation like? And what is this sensation like? And what is this sensation like? And then you're dying and you're just sitting there on your deathbed and you're like, oh, dying is arising. What is this sensation like? You don't get scared because you're just like, oh, what is death like? Oh, this is different. Oh, this is different. Wow, what is this like? And even the worst things, if you approach them with this mindset, oh, this is different, can be actually kind of pleasant, actually kind of interesting, fascinating even. Which is like, you know, pressing on this lumpy little joint. It doesn't, I mean, it's not good. I wouldn't pay somebody to do this. But it's also like it's not that, it doesn't have to be scary. It can just be different. It's like, this feels different. And especially this afternoon, we'll get into a lot of looking at how this can really take us to some interesting places, you know, freeing up our ability to think into things that we previously didn't want to think about because they were scary or unpleasant or they involved loss. When you really lean into this perception of impermanence, it's good things. Yeah. Loss is fun. Different is fun. Yeah. But we get to experience whatever is going on. You're like, oh, great. Yeah. This is new. Because new can always be good. It can always be interesting. Yeah. It never has to be a step down. Because in the reality, the past is already gone. Whatever good state we might have had way back when is already gone. And by virtue of being gone, it can only weigh us down. Now, the final obstruction is the most insidious, and it's dealing with something that you all have right now, and that is comfort. And I'm sorry to say, this is something we have more of in the present day than they had in the Buddhist time. In the Buddhist time, they did, at any time you could get bit by a snake. At any time the crops could fail and you wouldn't have food. At any time the water could be dangerous to drink. At any time, you know, the river could flood and your house could be washed away. Yeah. But in the modern day, we've gotten a lot better at creating nice, safe spaces to live into. Unfortunately, what we do is we populate them with the idea of the same. This is good. This is the same. This is the same. This is the same. This is the same. But this is still a comparison. Remember that the idea that something is the same or equal is still a conceit. Now, this is the final obstruction, the most insidious one that we should be watching out for this morning. And until we really start to peel away from the structure of what we think our life is, to being able to experience our life and feel it flowing through us, we're going to have to peel this away. Yeah. The things that are common, that are predictable, they're different. They're different. And this does not have to be objective. We don't have to say, oh yeah, okay, this is different than that. Because the reality is in every moment, things are different than they were. Yeah. It's like the stuff on the shelf is different because it's covered in a new layer of dust. It's older, it's grayer. Everything's changing, you know, even if it's staying in the same place because we put it there and we keep the rain from getting on it and we keep the squirrels from putting acorns in it and all of this. Still, it is different. It is changing just like we are. Yeah. So this is where even if we're not noticing this is better or this is worse, we still want to be using this mantra, different. This is different. And in a way, in the times when things are quietest, is the best time to kind of drop this into the mind. This is different. Yeah. Each time, let it kind of resonate with this idea that we can let go. whatever we are relying on, whatever we are attached to or expecting or dependent on, we can, it's different. It's actually different than I think. Yeah. It's changing, it's moving. I don't know. It's just doing its own thing. Again, it's like being out on a starry night, or being out for the day sick. When you're sick, you can't do anything. Yeah. You can have the fancy appliances in your kitchen, and you're too sick, you can't think about food, you can't use any of them. Yeah. All the things that we get used to at some point will be lying in our deathbed, and they will suddenly have no use. And what is it like to be on your deathbed knowing that you will never see another movie, you will never hear another piece of music, you will never smell another freshly baked pizza, you will never eat another meal. Yeah. You will never again feel comfort. Yeah, because your body's dying. I'm sorry to break it to you. It's probably not going to feel very like good and relaxing. It's probably going to be a little disturbing. And that's what we can kind of lead into that. Yeah, with this mind of this is different. Yeah, what is this moment actually like? And be willing to pry. Yeah, we're gonna say, well, this is my chair. No, this is not a different chair. It's my chair. I've got it just the way I like it. Well, just it's different. Yeah, what is it actually like? And if you say it's different, see, am I able to experience it in a new way based on just that idea? And that is leading us towards this meditation that we're cultivating. And the final thing I'll say before we get going with our first sitting meditation is that if you've never really approached it in this way, if you've dabbled in it but maybe not like sat with it as a like a tangible structured meditation, is that you should expect this to develop in a lot of the same ways that metta or asubha or even breath meditation develops. Because interestingly, in the Megha Sutta, that's where the Buddha puts this. He puts it beside those three other meditations and says it's really the same thing, and it has a particular goal. Its goal is the removal of the idea of self. But just that he's putting it there says that this is going to mature in much the same way. Yeah. So if you've worked with loving kindness, I think is a good example. You're going to see that at first it's kind of stuttering. At first you're like, do I even want to do this? I think I'd rather do that. But you kind of stay with it, and you chip away at it, and suddenly you will find that it starts to flow. And once it starts to flow, the only thing you need to do is to stay with it. Catch yourself kind of slipping off. Catch yourself kind of be like, oh, I've got it. Yeah, I've got it. It's just going now. And then, oh, different. Yeah, come use it to kind of wash away that sort of gloss of familiarity, which is again just that final little obstruction of this. Oh, this is good. This is the same. It's working. It's doing its thing, and just, oh no, it's different. What is it like in this moment? What is it like in this moment? And then it will really, you'll find yourself in a new place. And I'd like to encourage you, if you find yourself in that place, it's different. Oh, this is different. What is this like? Yeah, this is different. What is this like? Stay with it. Because if you've gotten rid of the idea, this is better, then you won't get so excited that you'll lose the meditation. If you've gotten rid of the idea that this is worse, like, I don't like this, I don't like this feels like I'm dying, this feels like I don't exist, this feels like I'm not important, I want to be important, I want to be the center of attention. You just, this is different. What is this? This is not worse. It's just different. Yeah. Then you will find yourself in this place and just look around. I'd say the Buddha places a lot of emphasis on this. This is a very good thing. Yeah. To not have a self bugging you all the time, to not objectify things, yeah? To be able to flow with things. As we'll get into in the afternoon session, it's like you can do some pretty interesting things with the mind once you've got this as your foundation. Yeah. So again, spend the morning just building the base. Okay. So now we'll shift into a sitting meditation. We'll sit for a half hour and then we'll break for walking.